The numbers are in for the Portland real estate market, and the average sale price is down again versus roughly the same time period last year. How much equity have homeowners lost or gained? We're going to put that in a historic context to go back a few years so that we can show where we are, how much we've gained, and how much we've lost over this last year. I'll also have the usual supply and demand numbers plus an update on foreclosures in our market. I'm Ron Milligan with RE/MAX Select here in Portland's Pearl District, and as usual, I've got the full market report for the Portland metro area. That includes Southwest Washington, Portland, and all the bedroom communities. Let's get into the numbers. First up is the inventory, the supply and demand equation, the number of homes that buyers have to choose from in the full metro area. That number was up slightly, up 1%, 3,150 versus the previous week. It was only an increase of about 30 listings this week versus last week. If you take a look at this chart here, it'll put it into perspective. We've gone weeks and weeks and weeks with regular decreases in the number of homes available and the supply of homes available. And like I said last week, it feels like we're kind of bouncing along the bottom right now. The last 3 or 4 weeks, the numbers have been pretty level. They haven't gone up much or down much. So I still feel like we're kind of bouncing along the bottom, and I still feel like we haven't had our spring buying season kick in yet. Who knows if we'll even have that this year. But my suspicion is still that we're going to start seeing some more listings as sellers come to the market. Speaking of new listings were up. They were up 23% versus the previous week. Kind of feels like a big increase, but we're still well below where we were last year at this time. The number of new listings to hit the market at roughly the same time period last year was 529. The number of new pendings, so new transactions, the number of properties that went under contract this last week was also up 8% versus the previous week. But at 562, that is well below where we were last year at this time. I checked my notes, that number came in at 883 for the number of new transactions. The average and median days on market, the amount of time that a home spends on the market before they receive an acceptable offer, is down. Average came down 8% versus the previous week, 46 days on market. However, at the same time period last year, that number was only 18. The median came in at 16, and last year at this time it was 5. If you take a look at this chart, it might put it into a little bit of perspective. Seems like a lot compared to last year, but the days on market certainly has been decreasing ever since about the first of the year. At $579,019, the average sale price this last week did come in under 2% under where we were the previous week. And if we compare it to roughly the same time period last year, we're down 3.1%. So homes today are trading at 3.1% lower than they did last year at this time. However, we are still trading at levels well above where we were at pre-pandemic levels. I went back and checked just the last few years to see where we were, how we stacked up in the average sale price. 2022, we have that number right here, 597,635. That's down 3.1%, as I mentioned. So here I've got the 2021 number for roughly the same time period. That came in at $547,001. That's 5.9% below where we are right now. So we're trading at 5.9% higher than we were at 2021. If we look at 2020, which is the end of the pre-pandemic time period, so in March of this time, the pandemic was just starting to have an effect on our market in 2020. That number was $457,225. That's a 26.6% increase in the average sale price from 2020 to where we are right now in 2023. And then if we go back to 2019, 434,471, that's a 33.3% increase 2019 versus where we are here in 2023. And I did notice this week that there seems to be a bit of a trend forming. If you take a look at this chart here with the average sale price, you can see that over the past 10 weeks, we've been kind of bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down, but we seem to be gaining a bit of ground when it comes to the average sale price, which is what normally happens this time of year. So if we're to take kind of a ruler and draw midway between these prices as we're bouncing up and down, we'll see that we look like we're on an upward trajectory when it comes to the average sale price, probably bottoming out there, it looks like, around mid-January. So I'll just keep an eye on that and let you know if this trend continues or something else starts to happen. Last up here are the foreclosure numbers. They just went up slightly, just one in the bank-owned category. So 51 went from 50 to 51 bank owns on the market. That's both active pending and short sale pending, because we're also looking at the short sales, those pre-foreclosure homes. Those came in at one higher than they were the previous week at 20 versus 19. Keep in mind, though, that we're looking at only 71 distressed properties out of a total of almost 6,000 active and pending listings on the market in the metro area. The foreclosure report that I received on Wednesday from Old Republic Title showed a really low number compared to what we've been seeing in previous weeks. There were a total of 16 recorded notices in that foreclosure process, where we've been seeing numbers in the 40s in the past few weeks. And of those 16, only 8 of them were notices of default. So that's that first step in the foreclosure process. A homeowner misses their payment and they get a 30-day late, and at that point the bank might issue that notice of default. That's, again, the first step in the foreclosure process. Only 8 of those. And because it was such a low number, I went through each one of those notices of default just to see, were these homes that went under contract during the frenzy of 2021 and 22, or were these different situations? So of the 8 total that I saw, only one of them was from 2020. That was it. The rest were 2016, 07, 06, 07, 07, 07, and 2012. That was it. So I suspect, or at least I hope, that these folks had not done a lot of, like cash out refinancing or home equity lines of credit to deplete their equity. I'm hoping that they have a fair amount of equity in their homes and that they won't lose out or actually end up in an actual foreclosure situation. That being said, these numbers are really low compared to what we typically see when it comes to numbers of foreclosures in our market. Last thing up is I wanted to talk about where we are. Last year at this time, if you remember, the Fed for the very first time raised their Fed funds rate and sent shockwaves through the market. Interest rates spiked. They went up very high, very quickly, and we didn't yet see the results of that for several months, for a couple of months. The average sale price continued to increase until we hit around April, May, and the numbers of active listings stayed really low. The inventory of active listings was still really low, lower than the numbers that we had seen in 2021. So we didn't see the results of those interest rate spike until later on, closer to the summer, when things really started to manifest. However, what we did see was a severe drop in the numbers of showings, because a lot of buyers got kicked out of the market when rates went up. They couldn't afford the homes anymore. And we also saw a drop in the number of offers that we would see on each home. So properties were still selling above asking price, not with 7 to 12 offers, but maybe with 2 to 3, sometimes only with 1. So I think it's going to be interesting going forward, comparing this year's numbers to last year's numbers, how we're lining up. I do think we're going to see a big discrepancy between the average sale price last year and this year. The average sale price got up well into the 600s, well above 650 at one point. I don't see us getting anywhere near that this year, but I am curious to see if that average sale price continues that much more modest trajectory that we've been seeing over the last 10 weeks, and to see if it does continue to increase into April and May, which is typically when we see our highest average sale price on any given year. Once we hit that number, then the average sale price proceeds to recede throughout the balance of the year, and that's kind of a normal thing for our market. So that's what I have for you this week. As always, thank you so much for watching to the very end. I would love a thumbs up if you would give me one of those. And if you haven't followed the channel, please do follow. Most of all, though, if you know of someone who might be a little stressed out or worried about what's going on with the equity in their home, or maybe it's a buyer who's wondering whether or not this is a good time to jump into the market, please share this video with them. I would greatly appreciate it. And we will see you next week.